Sir Edward Lee.
I thank the Honourable Member for Strangford for once again ensuring that we have a debate on these sort of matters. And I've been taking part in these debates for, I suppose, the best part of 2 decades. And at first, I have to say, the position of the government, our government, was studiously neutral. But I'm glad to say that progress has been made. And this debate is all part of a process of drawing attention to what is happening and to try and turn a spotlight on these matters. And I'll go through a few cases. We've heard about the situation in southern Sudan. Only this April, there was a violent attack against the then father, now Bishop Christian Calasaeri, the Italian missionary appointed as Catholic Bishop of Rumbek in southern Sudan. Government invaded his residence and fired 13 bullets, injuring the bishop-elect, who had to be led to hospital in Nairobi. South Sudan, of course, is a majority Christian country, but is still plagued with violence as groups have been jockeying for power in the 10 years since independence. In 2021, an Anglican priest, the Reverend Daniel Gareg Nguyen, was murdered. In 2018, a Jesuit priest, Father Victor Luca Ordamiambo, was murdered. In 2017, the Pentecostal leader, Joel Merenda, was murdered. Now, I hope that the United Kingdom government has been quietly, I'm afraid it probably only is quietly proactive, in trying to bring peace and security to South Sudan. And actually, quite recently, I met our former ambassador to South Sudan, Chris Trott. I met him in the context of him now becoming the ambassador to the Holy See. And he assured me that our government took the situation in South Sudan really seriously and that he was trying to work with church leaders to resolve this. Church leaders of all denominations. And it does seem to me that working with the churches is a key to all this, to understanding what is going on the ground. In South Sudan, Auxiliary Bishop Daniel Adwok of Khartoum told Aid the Church in Need, which is a Catholic charity I work with very closely, that, quote, terror reigns in South Sudan. Terror reigns there with warriors, government and politicians grappling for power, positions, and not minding the fate of ordinary southern Sudanese. The fact that until today no one knows, the government itself does not know, how many people died in South Sudan since the start of the war, is indicative of how the value of the human person has become of no worth in South Sudan. And one of the reasons for this sort of debate, my honourable friend quite rightly articulated the point of view that Black Lives Matter. One of the points is that there's precious little interest in this, in the media, amongst the general population in Europe. These places are considered to be faraway places of which we know little. And perhaps the general view is that life there isn't of such importance as it is in Europe. But although we're going to mention a whole series of cases and names and figures and facts, as my honourable friend said, the fact is every one of these murders, massacres, is a human life. Yes. You know, all these children have mothers and fathers. And all these mothers and fathers have children. So it doesn't matter that it's in a very poor, very remote, very far away place. Yes. Every single one of these massacres and horrible violence is just tearing a family apart. It's cruel and horrible. So once again, I say the Honourable Member for Strangford is to be congratulated in trying, even only in this second chamber, not in the main chamber, to try and draw attention. Yeah. So let's look at other countries where we've heard about. The so-called Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, we've heard of them, a Ugandan violent Islamist group, is being forced slowly out of Uganda, we hope, but now operates in the North Kivu province, the Democratic Republic of Congo and beyond. December last year, 17 people, the village of Mwanda, were killed in a machete attack. Weeks later, on the 4th of January, 22 more killed in the same village. Simultaneously, 25 murdered in the village of Tingwe. It is all in the past 12 months. You notice when I start reading out, I start sort of speeding up, you know. Yes. 22 murdered here, 25 there, 35 there. But, you know, these are all individual human beings. And imagine if it was going on in Europe or America. In 2016, the United Nations estimates that ADF had killed 645 people since 2014. Now, 5 years later, that number's definitely hugely increased. The ADF is hardly the only group involved either. There's also the group calling themselves the Central African Province of the Islamic State, affiliated to ISIL in Iraq and Syria. They've been operating in the DRC and infiltrating neighbouring states. In June this year, they claimed responsibilities for an attack on a Catholic church in Beni, DRC, as well as a suicide attack at an intersection in the same town. In Mozambique, these Islamic State militants have linked up with the pre-existing local group Ansar al-Sunnah to expand the insurgency in the Cabo Delgado province. Ilia Dejadi from the charity Open Doors has said these predominantly Christian communities are attacked by an Islamic extremist group with a clear extremist Islamic expansionist agenda. Mr. Dejadi pointed out that while different groups with different origins are involved, there is a common agenda. Militants want to create an extreme Islamic state stretching from the Sahel, where French soldiers have been hugely successful in fighting rebels, all the way through Central Africa, Kenya and Somalia. Yeah.
He's making an excellent speech, as he always does, and he talks about a common agenda. Does he share with me the real concern that not only do these individual groups have a common agenda, but now they are linking up? Now that's what's really concerning, because that's where there is serious danger across a wide range of not just one but many countries and a continent.
I think we should take this extremely seriously in terms of Western geopolitical interest.
Exactly.
We're not now talking about just uncoordinated local attacks, terrible as it might be in terms of human lives. We're talking about whole movements and whole provinces in danger of being lost by the central state. And we have seen what has happened in Afghanistan. And if anybody thinks that this won't come back to bite us in terms of terrorism being exported, I mean, that may be a rather sanguine point of view. So let's just finish with one other comment from Bishop Paluku Sekuli Melchizedek of Dutumba Beni in the Democratic Republic of Congo. He's given a harrowing account to Age in the Church of Need of the Islamist insurgents in the country. He said, and he says, and I quote, "The number of incidents is particularly high in the northern part of our diocese. Armed groups are destroying schools and hospitals. Teachers and pupils have been killed. They're even killing the sick as they lie in their hospital beds. Not a day goes past by without people being killed." And he added, and I quote, "We need centres where people can go for therapy. Many people are traumatised. Many have watched as their parents are killed. There are many orphans and widows. Villages have been burned to the ground. We are in a state of utter misery." The bishop implied that the government of DRC is complicit in the violence. He said the state as such doesn't exist. And I have been to the DRC, and it is a failed state, there's no doubt about it. The state as such does not exist. The reach of the government does not extend into the east, be it out of weakness or complicity. Responding to the growing threat of extremist Islamization, the bishop said, "Islam is being forced on us. Mosques are being built everywhere, even though no one needs them. The mosques do not look like the traditional ones we are familiar with." He added, "Anyone who has been kidnapped by these terrorist groups and managed to escape from them alive has told the same story. They are given the choice between death and conversion to Islam." So what about the UK response? We've got the minister here. What can we do? The evidence is absolutely overwhelming, appalling in terms of human dignity and rights and peace, and the danger also to us, I think. I've said that the government was too reticent in these matters, and the previous government, but we've had progress. We welcome the changes we've seen in recent years, particularly been mentioned the Foreign Office's review, chaired by the Bishop of Truro, into government support for persecuted Christians. And we know the review issued its report in July 2019, and we received a solid commitment from ministers to implement its recommendations. The situation in Central Africa shows the government needs to do more. And in particular, may I say that the Prime Minister's Special Envoy for freedom of religion or belief needs to have, and I'm saying this directly to the Minister, a properly dedicated civil service resource. She cannot say this herself. She's an absolutely committed lady, and she has not been given the support that she needs from our government in terms of support from senior ministers like the Foreign Secretary, or in terms of resources given to her. And too often in government, honourable members are appointed as envoys to keep them quiet, but this lady is not going to be quiet. All right, Minister? So give her proper support, because she is literally working every day of the week on these issues, and she's not going to give up, and she's not going to go away. So, is there any frontline role for the UK to be more proactive in defeating violent extremists in Central Africa? And I very much hope that when the Minister replies, she will not just say this is terrible and all that. We agree with all that, but she will actually say what we can do. Now, I have to say the French are very good in all this, and I declare an interest. I'm well known for my belief in the importance of strategic cooperation with our French allies, our closest neighbours. We depend on them in many ways. They have been extremely effective in the use of their special forces. And one of the reasons why we want to improve our relationship with France is we want to work more closely. Now, the Minister will not be able to comment on this. She will not be able to comment on how our special forces have been involved. But I believe, and I can say this, although the Minister can't possibly comment, that special forces are absolutely crucial in dealing with terrorism. These people basically are bullies. And what they don't like is some SAS person lying in wait for them and shooting them in the back when they're on their way to murder people. It's one thing that bullying terrorists and murderers don't like. So I believe that cooperation, and I accept the Minister can't comment on this part of my speech, I believe that special forces are absolutely crucial. But perhaps she can comment about the support that she's giving to friendly governments like Nigeria. There is a huge amount of belief in these areas that the central government is either weak, corrupt, complicit, or totally ineffective. And I went to a conference organised by the British government last year when we had people coming from all over Central Africa and relating their experiences. And the common theme was the ineffectiveness of central government. Now, I don't know exactly what is the state of our aid programmes, but I would have thought, given that we are such a major aid donor, we have a lot of influence. And we should not be afraid to exert that influence on governments that are weak, corrupt, complicit, or ineffective. So, in conclusion, is there more that we, our government, can do to provide to national, regional, local government officials in this part of Central Africa plagued by violence? Can we do more to help them? Now, we cannot just walk by on the other side of the road. We have a duty to protect others, to prevent further catastrophes and help secure peace and stability in the region. We must do more in the United Kingdom. We must do our bit, and we must pull our weight.